Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the Cultural Confederacy. It's Thursday. I have to say it feels great to be back. I've been out with this sinus infection or whatever this virus is that's going around. I got it. So what happened was last week I was carrying some groceries up the hill. It's the middle of January, but I was layered. And the moment I got home, I had this pain in my shoulders and my back. And I thought, well, maybe I just carried a little too much up the hill. Next thing you know, I'm in the bathroom, I got a chill. Then I'm in bed for 2 days with a fever, pain over the eye, pain in the shoulders. And something else I noticed about this particular strand is that it dries you out rather quickly. And you'll have an appetite, but for some reason you're full. So you can only eat a few bites of something. And all the congestion is in the chest. So you can breathe out of your nose. No congestion in my sinuses, but all in the chest. And once it breaks up in clumps. Oh, just nasty. Really, really nasty. So if you're going through this, get plenty of rest, drink plenty of fluids, eat chicken soup, social distance if you have to. Of course, I always social distance because I can't stand being around people. I'm just joking. In real life, I'm a down-to-earth guy. I'll have coffee with anybody. So that's the reason why I haven't been able to post anything in the past week, is because I've been out with this sinus infection or virus, whatever is out there. So be cautious, wash your hands, do what you need to do to stay safe during this time of year. But this is an article here at U.S. News and World Reports. This is a follow-up to a video I posted last week talking about January 6th, about the crowd size January 6th, how the officials in D.C. weren't able to handle the size of the crowd. And two things broke yesterday. The Supreme Court has ruled against Trump, saying that he cannot use executive privilege to block these documents from being released. And it's coming out now that Ashley Babbitt was not some fringe Trump supporter. She was actually trying to stop these leftist activists who were trying to break windows or do what they were doing at the Capitol building. That's what Ashley Babbitt was doing. And in the process, she got shot by this Capitol police officer who's got a questionable past, who should have never been an officer to begin with. So this is an article by Zeke Miller, came out December 28th. Title of the article, once again, U.S. News and World Reports, White House January 6th Committee agreed to shield some documents. The House Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol has agreed to defer its attempt to get hundreds of pages of records from the Trump administration, holding off at the request of the Biden White House. The deferral is in response to concerns by the Biden White House that releasing all the Trump administration documents sought by the committee could compromise national security and executive privilege. That's not the reason. The reason why is because Biden doesn't want to look bad. He doesn't want these documents exposing what his side did January 6th. Because we all know, nobody's willing to admit to it, but I know the truth here. We all know that January 6th was nothing more than a ruse to oust Trump. A power play between Republicans and Democrats. That's exactly what it was. And until we get rid of these two political parties and we ditch D.C., nothing's going to change. President Joe Biden has repeatedly rejected former President Donald Trump's blanket efforts to cite executive privilege to block the release of these documents surrounding that day. Biden's White House is still working with the committee to shield some documents from being turned over. Yes, because he doesn't want his side being exposed. Trump is appealing to the Supreme Court to try to block the National Archives and Records Administration, which maintains custody of the documents from his time in office, from giving them to the committee. And as I said yesterday, it broke that the Supreme Court ruled against Trump. The agreement to keep some Trump-era records away from the committee is memorized in a December 16th letter from the White House counsel's office. I can't say this word. It's M-E-O-R-I-A-L-I-Z-E-D. Past tense of sending a memo, but I can't say it for some reason. Doesn't help that I have this cold. It mostly shields records that do not involve the events of January 6th, but were covered by the committee's sweeping request for documents from the Trump White House about the events of that day. Let me read that again. It mostly shields records that do not involve the events of January 6th, but were covered by the committee's sweeping request for documents from the Trump White House about the events of that day. So what exactly are in these documents? Why are you hiding them? You know, our taxes pay for your salary. Those of you who work in D.C., Joe Biden, people in Congress, the FBI, CIA, release these documents. Release these documents. Let's see what's in these documents. Why does everything in D.C. have to be classified? Why does it have to be all secretive? Or are you just doing this because you want to tout your power, even though we pay your taxes and you work for us? Dozens of pages created January 6 don't pertain to the assault on the Capitol, so why have these documents in the first place? Other documents involve sensitive preparations and deliberations by the National Security Council. Biden's officials were worried that if those pages were turned over to Congress, that would set a troublesome precedent for the executive branch no matter who is president. So other documents are highly classified, and the White House asked Congress to work with the federal agencies that created them to discuss their release. So these agencies who created these documents, who had a hand in what happened January 6th, don't want to release the documents because they created these documents. You get this, right? You see the logic here? They create the ruse. They create the documents talking about the ruse. They have this faux investigation. Now they don't want to release the documents that they created. Starting to sound like Russian collusion? And I can guarantee you, if I looked at any document, just randomly at any document from the Russian investigation, none of it would make any sense. That's how incompetent these people are in D.C. Quote, the documents for which the Select Committee has agreed to withdraw or defer its request do not appear to bear on the White House's preparations or response to the events of January 6th, or on efforts to overturn the election or otherwise obstruct the peaceful transfer of power, White House Deputy Counsel Jonathan Su wrote, one of the two letters to the committee obtained Tuesday by the Associated Press. Su wrote for the committee, withholding the documents, quote, should not compromise its ability to complete its critical investigation expeditiously. Committee spokesperson Tim Mulvey said, the committee has agreed to defer action on certain records as part of the accommodations process, as was the case with an earlier tranche of records, and the Select Committee has not withdrawn its request for these records and will continue to engage with the executive branch to ensure the committee gets access to all the information relevant to our probe. Something else I noticed with the cold. Whether you can hear or not with the cold, with the congestion or not, for some reason it's really hard to talk. You notice that? For the last several months, the National Archives has been transmitting tranches of documents to the White House and to lawyers for Trump to determine whether they contain any privileged information. Trump has raised both broad objections to the release of the documents as well as specific concerns about particular documents. The National Archives has said that the records Trump wants to block include presidential diaries, visitor logs, speech drafts, handwritten notes, quote, concerning the events of January 6th from the files of former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and, quote, a draft executive order on the topic of election integrity. So I can see blocking documents that involve the presidential diary, a visitor log, drafts of speeches, you want people copying that, handwritten notes that may have sensitive information on them. I can completely understand that. But I think overall, these documents are not going to work in Democrats' favor. They're just not. Because you guys perpetrated the ruse to oust Trump. Biden has repeatedly rejected Trump's claims of executive privilege over those documents, including in a letter sent December 23rd regarding about 20 pages of documents. Quote, the president has determined that an assertion of executive privilege is not in the best interest of the United States and therefore is not justified, White House counsel Dana Remis reiterated in the latest letter. Trump has taken to the courts to block the document releases. A federal appeals court ruled this month against Trump, and he has filed an appeal to the Supreme Court, though the High Court has yet to decide whether to take up the case, and it broke yesterday that, in fact, they ruled against Trump. Judge Patricia Millett, writing for the court in the December 9th opinion, said, quote, Congress has a uniquely vital interest in studying the events of January 6th. Biden has made a carefully reasoned determination that the documents were in the public interest and that executive privilege should therefore not be invoked. Trump also failed to show any harm that would occur from the release of these sought-after records, Millett wrote. Quote, on the records before us, former President Trump has provided no basis for this court to override President Biden's judgment, and the agreement and accommodations worked out between the political branches over these documents, the opinion stated. Political football, folks. That's all this is. Political football. So this is an article that U.S. News and World Reports came out December 28th. Once again, title of the article, White House January 6th committee agreed to shield some documents. So while Biden is willing to agree here to allow some of these documents to be released, he's not going to let others be released. And of course, we all know why, as I said, because he doesn't want his side looking bad. Why don't you people in these political camps come out and say, we hate Trump so much that we designed this whole thing January 6th to oust Trump. And to that I say, good riddance DC, good riddance FBI, CIA, see you later. We're going our own separate way. It's time for these states, for all the states in the union, to separate from the central power, the central authority, because that is how our government was originally designed. It is the states who are sovereign and independent. It is the states who are central to our Constitution, not the other way around. The state should have the ultimate power. The people who live in those states should have the ultimate say because they live in those states. The issues that happen at home affect them the most. Not this distance or this distant place called D.C., where you have this distance between the states and this government entity that thinks it needs to rule from on high. I mean, yes, the federal government has certain powers, but they are limited under the Constitution, and we need to get back to our roots of limited government, a limited central authority, where the states are sovereign and independent, and the power goes back to the people, not to a political party. They can get away with what they did on January 6, 2021. So if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram at #JasonComposes. You can leave comments below. Now you can reach me at Twitter, Culture Confederacy at Twitter. Thank you for bearing with me. I said I've been getting over this sinus infection or whatever this virus is, so my throat's been a little scratchy, a little sore. So thanks for bearing with me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time. This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out. Stay safe, everybody. God bless this great country, and y'all have a great week.